Hey guys, welcome back to Checkerboard Chat, the official sports podcast of the Daily Beacon. This episode of Checkerboard Chat is sponsored by Grand Forest Apartments. I'm Blake Hagen, the sports editor. He's Will Backus, the assistant sports editor. Here with Corey Sanning and Noah Taylor. And today we're going to talk about Tennessee on the men's side. They're heading to the SEC tournament, and the women's side if they'll make the NCAA tournament. All right, we'll start off with the Lady Vols. Their regular season and their conference tournament are finished now. You guys were there for the SEC tournament. Got a win over LSU and then lost to Mississippi State. What are some takeaways you have from those two games?
I mean, obviously the LSU win was big. I feel like we kind of saw the team that we saw against Ole Miss, except a more quality opponent. They came out with fire. They looked a lot more excited than they had been in a while. I noticed during warm-ups that they were a lot more energized, and it seemed they were more focused and locked in than they had been. And then when they went on a run late and took timeouts, they were jumping and hopping over to the bench. They were super excited. They really seemed like they wanted to be there, which I can't say that about a lot of games they've been in this year. So that was big for them. And in the Mississippi State game, I don't think anyone expected them to win. They played about as well as you could against a team that's just better than them in almost every aspect. They really were in it for about 3.5 quarters. They led after the first quarter, and then it just kind of fell apart. In the second quarter, only scored 9 points as opposed to, I think, Mississippi State's 24-26. So they just kind of let it get away there. But if you take that away, it was a pretty good effort all around by them. They matched Mississippi State blow for blow for almost the entire game, besides that pretty much entire quarter. So I think they did enough to sneak into the tournament. The latest projection has them as an 11 seed playing in College Park, Maryland, against, I believe, Florida State. So that's an interesting first-round matchup to watch. But so far, I think they did enough to get in, and they impressed me a little bit more than I thought they would.
Yeah, I feel like we saw a different team against LSU, like you said, more energized. Definitely kind of playing. It seemed like they were playing for something. And I saw it carry over against Mississippi State especially. And that was an LSU team that was probably playing their best basketball late in the regular season. So like you said, Ole Miss, we saw them blow out a team that wasn't very good, but then the next week we saw them beat a pretty quality opponent in this conference. So that was impressive. And then, like you said, 3.5 quarters with Mississippi State was another solid showing. Didn't expect them to win that game, but I agree. I think it was enough to get them in, and I think the bubble kind of helps too with who else they're going up against.
Going back to that Mississippi State game, they had the lead there, like you said, after the first quarter, and they were playing pretty well. So what happened in the second quarter? Was it just that Mississippi State's that much better and that just didn't show in the first quarter because of such a small sample size, or did the Lady Vols shoot themselves out of it? I mean, what was the problem there in the second quarter?
I mean, I think it was Mississippi State's defense really started to take over. Tennessee did a pretty good job of handling it in the first quarter. It helped that Tierra McCown picked up a couple early fouls, so she was out of there for a little while. But Mississippi State started pressing more. They started playing up on the ball handler more, and they caused so many turnovers. Tennessee finished with 26. Mississippi State scored 30 points off of those turnovers. So that was their highest mark this season. They haven't turned it over. That was their highest turnover mark this season. So Mississippi State just played some dominant defense. There were times where Tennessee struggled to inbound the ball. I think on their first possession in the first quarter, they had to call timeout because they couldn't get the ball in bounds. So that was kind of indicative of how the rest of the game would go. Again, they had that little run in the first quarter, and I think that's just because they were hitting shots, and they were hitting some pretty tough shots, and they were running offense pretty well. But Mississippi State, I think, did a good job of adjusting, and they adapted their defense to really just shut down Tennessee.
Yeah, it was like two completely different games. Especially, I mean, what was impressive to me was the fact that in that first quarter, and even against LSU, neither game started out good for Tennessee at all. They took, Ole Miss, Mississippi State was up like 4-0 in the first 5 minutes, but it kind of seemed like it should have been a lot more. So they weathered that storm, was able to close out the first quarter on a strong note. But I mean, like you said, I think Mississippi State was just a better team, physically bigger, faster. But turnovers didn't help. It killed them. So, like you said, 26 of them.
They were a 15.5 point favorite was the line that it closed on, and I think Tennessee actually hit banked in a three at the end to cover the spread, so that was interesting. Makes you think, doesn't it? For Corey and I, we got to see Tennessee on the men's side beat Mississippi State on senior night and then go to Auburn and lose that game to close out the regular season. What did you see from those two games, and how do you think Tennessee's playing right now compared? They looked like they're playing really well. Last time we were on here, we were talking about the Kentucky game. Maybe not quite as well this week, although Auburn did shoot really well. What did you think from those two games?
Well, I mean, it's just the offensive struggles that we continue to see from them in the second half. You know, it's a little bit alarming when you consider Tennessee won 19 games in a row at one point. They have one of the country's top offenses, but at the same time, they just can't seem to find a way to close games out, particularly on the road. We saw that in Auburn. We saw that, you saw that in Baton Rouge. They weren't able to hold a 9-point lead with 6 minutes to go in that game. Those are trends you don't want to see continue if you're a Tennessee fan heading into tournament time, especially because this is the time they've been waiting for all year. And at this point, they haven't been playing their best basketball, but, maybe they'll get on a run. We'll have to see what happens. But, it's all you always look back in hindsight and say, well, they could have done this and they could have done that. But like I said, they just need to execute better in the second half, and that's what I took away from them.
And the good news for Tennessee is these games that they've kind of fallen apart down the stretch have been road games. And when you play in the NCAA tournament, those aren't going to be road games unless you play against maybe a Duke in the South region, which it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It should be a neutral site. Tennessee fans, I think they'll travel pretty well this year for the NCAA tournament, so
no doubt.
They could even have a crowd advantage, so that'll help. I mean, they've had some close games at home, and then they've been able to turn it on, and I think a lot of that is just the energy feeding off the crowd. You see in college basketball, in these road games or a home atmosphere can really help a team or hurt the road team, so I think that might be part of it. But then, Lamonte Turner is a big problem right now, I think, for the offense. If he's not shooting well, that really hurts Tennessee because he can obviously, we saw in the Ole Miss game, that's kind of been the bright spot in the last few weeks for him is he turned it on there in that game, and that really helped Tennessee open up a lead. They never looked back, and I think Jordan Bowden's got to play a little better, although he did shoot pretty well against Auburn, but he didn't take a lot of shots in the second half.
Nope.
That's a concern. So they got to get those guys going. They can't just be a Grant Williams, although he's going to get his points. They know that. So it's got to be, who else is going to step up, and I think that's what they're going to be looking for going forward.
Absolutely.
Speaking of going forward, Lady Ball is now, the selection show will be coming up next Monday night. So where you guys mentioned the projections, Tennessee is an 11 seed. You guys think that sounds right? You think there's an outside shot they don't make the tournament?
I think at this point they're probably going to be in because they really needed that win against LSU, and a lot of people saw that game as both teams needed to win it, and the team that won it probably did enough to secure a spot in the NCAA tournament. So if LSU had won it, we'd be talking about LSU being an 11 seed. So I think Tennessee did enough to get in. We talked about name recognition a lot. That definitely helps. And LSU was a pretty good resume-building win at the end there. One of their only really good conference wins. So, plus I think what they showed against Mississippi State, they had put a complete four-quarter game together, and then that could have been, a single-digit game. So they had, I think, done enough to get in. Number 11 an 11 seed sounds right. It's probably the lowest they'll go. I don't see them missing it. It sounds right to me.
Yeah, I was watching Charlie Cream, I think on Sunday. I did an interview with WBLT, and he talked about the name recognition factor, and he said, well, I think that might be part of I think some people look at that as a conspiracy theory. Like, I don't think the NCAA necessarily puts in a team because of their name. I disagree with that because I think that, and we talked about this earlier, women's basketball mid-majors often don't make big runs in the tournament. So people are going to want to see a team like Tennessee get in. And although that they've lost to pretty much every big team they've played this year outside of Texas, they've shown that they can hang with a lot of people. Kentucky or Notre Dame, Stanford, and Mississippi State, obviously. So I think that'll help them get in. I think the LSU win obviously helped, and I would say 11 seeds perfect.
Yeah. Plus, I think a first-round matchup between Florida State and Tennessee has a lot more appeal
Absolutely.
than a first-round matchup between Florida State and a mid-major.
And then they'd get, I guess, Maryland in the second round if they played in College Park, or NC State, who's a 3 seed in the second round if it's in Raleigh. So either of those matchups would be good as well.
What's interesting to me, and I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but I think the RPI is in the 60s for Lady Balls. And if you're looking at, normally, if your RPI is in the 60s and you're a power conference team, because you have to account for the mid-majors that get in that are going to be higher than a 60, and they get in because they win their conference tournament. A 60 is not going to get you in the tournament. But it seems like everybody's saying the Lady Balls are going to be in. So, I mean, do you think that could be an issue, that their RPI is so bad, or do you think, you talk about the name recognition and their ability to hang with some big teams, do you feel confident they'll make it in?
I feel pretty confident. From all I've heard and all I've seen, I wouldn't say they're a lock. I'd say there's definitely probably still questions, and if they don't make it in, I wouldn't necessarily be shocked. But from what I've seen and from what I've heard, I think they're going to make it in. It would be kind of hard. Well, I wouldn't say it would be hard to keep them out, but just the history and the precedent. And then they closed the season kind of strong with that blowout win against Ole Miss, and then a win against a pretty good LSU team. I think they'll make it.
Yeah, if there were projections that showed that they weren't, I guess I would probably say that there's a chance. And I mean, there's always a chance that they won't make it. But yeah, I'd say they're a pretty safe bet right now to get in.
All right, we'll preview the men's SEC tournament coming up. First, we'll get a word in from Grand Forest Apartments.
Welcome to Grand Forest Apartments. We have over 30 years of experience in building and managing student apartments on college campuses. We offer you, the students at the University of Tennessee, affordable luxury housing within walking distance of UT. Our professional on-site management and maintenance staff will make every effort to make your home away from home a great experience. Things that are included with living at Grand Forest are spiral staircase design. We also have free water and laundry facilities. We have walk-in closets and full-size beds. There is a dishwasher and microwave included. Free Comcast internet and cable TV. Our space also features a swimming pool. We also have 24-hour on-call maintenance. We hope you will choose to make yourselves at home with us.
Okay, so now Tennessee heading to the SEC tournament this week. They'll play on Friday because they get the double bye as the number 3 seed in the tournament. LSU is the 1 seed. You got Kentucky as the 2 seed, Tennessee the 3, and South Carolina is the 4. Tennessee, it looks like, so Vanderbilt plays Texas A&M and on Wednesday night. Winner of that game will play Mississippi State, and then the winner of that game will play Tennessee. Vanderbilt does not have a win so far in the SEC. Anybody see an upset coming? And this seems like a Noah Taylor special.
If they're due for one, and this would be the time to do it. And Bryce Drew said they're 0-0 now,
right now.
It's a new season.
I mean, he might have a point, but I don't see it happening. I mean, this Vanderbilt team's just been so bad throughout the season. I mean, they're inconsistent on offense. You know, they haven't had consistent coaching. They lost their best player at the start of the season. They had to basically reinvent their entire roster and game plan. I mean, at this point, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think A&M is a little too much for them with TJ Stark, so they got too much talent for Vanderbilt. So I think it's going to be A&M and Mississippi State. It could be an interesting matchup, but I think A&M is going to win that, Mississippi State is going to win that one, which would be the 6 seed versus the 3 seed. That's kind of the projected matchup, Tennessee versus Mississippi State. We saw them play just this last week. What do you think about a rematch of those two teams?
Well, I think it'd be a pretty safe bet to say Tennessee would take that one. And while we're at the subject of the SEC tournament, I am just thankful that I will not be traveling via Greyhound this year. Just to throw that out there. But no, I don't see Mississippi State upsetting Tennessee this time around. I mean, Tennessee's the favorite to win it all, to win the tournament, over Kentucky and LSU, which is kind of a surprise given their recent track record. But I mean, if you take their entire portfolio as a whole this season, I mean, it's a safe bet to say Tennessee will probably end up in the championship game. I don't see Mississippi State upsetting them this time. I think we'll see a lot of what we saw last time in Knoxville.
Yeah, Tennessee is a slight favorite, barely favored over Kentucky, who's the second biggest favorite. You got Auburn coming in third, I think. Or LSU and Auburn are right there around third. As far as the odds go, LSU, obviously, they've got the Will Wade situation. He's not going to be coaching them likely, so, I mean, where do you guys see that? Does that hurt LSU? Obviously, you guys aren't covering the Tennessee men's team, but, just as you've seen in college basketball where coaches get suspended, I mean, how do you think that's going to play a role in LSU's success in the tournament?
Well, in general, in sports, when coaches get suspended, it could go either one of 2 ways. It could inspire the players to play harder because they kind of want to go against that grain, against that narrative of, oh, we're going to fall off because our coach got suspended. And they could see that as something to rally around. Like coaches, sometimes when they draw technicals in games, that fires a team up because they rally around their coach. Or they could play uninspired because they don't have their coach and they're embroiled in that big scandal right now. They've got, the nation's eyes on them, and not in a good way. They've gotten a lot of flack from national media, pundits, fans. Everybody has kind of been bashing them. So that could weigh against them. That could be on their mind. And I don't know what the situation is on Smart and Reed, but I guess they could be going forward without them in the tournament too, which would be a pretty big blow because those are 2 pretty crucial pieces to what they do. But I mean, they handled business against Vanderbilt. I'm not going to say that's a super impressive win, but I think
40-point win.
Yeah, I mean, a 40-point win is an impressive win. But so I think that might have, proven that they can handle it without Will Wade and without Smart and without Reed. But that was against Vanderbilt, so we'll see what happens.
Vanderbilt is just looking ahead.
Yeah,
just looking ahead.
Vanderbilt was looking to the new season. Yeah.
They're primed to make a run, so yeah, they were
Light
just
at the end
ahead.
of the tunnel, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to tell if this is going to inspire them or if it's going to affect them in a bad way, because like he said, Vanderbilt was the team. We saw them beat Florida in Gainesville. The next night, Will Wade is suspended. So they look good against Vanderbilt, 40-point win, like you said, but it's at the end of the day, it is Vanderbilt. So I don't know. The Bryce Drew is onto something about the whole. It's a new season, so you don't know how they're going to play. And I think they draw. Who would they draw on the second day or
Vanderbilt.
third day? Or LSU? Would it be Florida? The winner, Florida and Alabama? Or?
Yes.
Or South Carolina?
No, South Carolina's the 4th seed.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's Florida, Alabama.
Okay, so and we've seen them play. Florida's beat them once this year already, and
In
then
Baton Rouge.
should have beat them the other night. Probably.
Florida, Arkansas.
Florida, Arkansas, right? And did Arkansas beat them once this year already? So you never know. I mean, I think that'll be a pretty tough. Yeah, I'm encroaching on y'all's territory. I don't know very well.
anything about it.
But yeah, who knows? I think that's a pretty tough draw for them if they get one of those teams.
Why they call it March Madness?
So we'll go ahead and give some projections here. They're probably going to be wrong because that's what we do.
Yep.
We'll assume Tennessee and Kentucky meet in the semis. On one side, you got LSU, Auburn, South Carolina, maybe Alabama or Florida. On the other side of the bracket, any of those, make sure those teams could meet on the other side. Who do you guys have in the SEC championship, and who do you think wins that game?
I'd say it'll probably come down to LSU, Tennessee. That's a pretty bold prediction because, Tennessee, Kentucky could really go either way. It's the rubber match. They've both gotten big wins against each other this year, kind of blew each other out on each of their home courts. So they get the rubber match on the neutral site. I think it'll be a close game finally. I think it'll be the game that a lot of people expect the Tennessee-Kentucky game when both teams are top 10 programs to be. And I think Tennessee will probably get the slight edge. I feel like, I don't want to say they're playing for more, but they're really trying to push themselves into that number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament conversation, so that could definitely fire them up. And then, again, with LSU, I guess we'll have to see how it'll play out with, Smart and Reed. And, Will Wade will probably likely miss the SEC tournament, and he'll probably miss the NCAA tournament too. But they're just a good team. They're athletic. They're crazy athletic. They've still got Waters. So, he's probably the best point guard in the league. So I think they'll make a big run. I guess another team to watch on that side of the bracket would probably be Auburn for me. They're a pretty dangerous team, especially if they can catch on fire from deep, which we saw against Tennessee. Bryce Brown and Jared Harper, if they can start hitting shots, then they're pretty hard to beat. So for me, it'll probably be LSU versus Tennessee in the championship, but a team like Auburn would be one to watch. And then Kentucky, of course, you can't really sleep on Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the dark horse Florida. I'm just kidding. I'm going to say LSU, Kentucky. I think that Kentucky-Tennessee game could go either way, being the rubber match and everything, being a rivalry game. But Kentucky's been so historically dominant in SEC tournament play, and that's probably the most basic pick you can make. But that's who I'm going with. LSU, Kentucky with Kentucky winning.
I think if you go by the odds, Tennessee LSU is the favorite, and Will said it was a bold prediction, which shows he knows nothing about anything.
That's true.
Corey, what's your prediction?
I'm going with I'm going to go with the odds prediction. I'm going to go with Tennessee LSU. I do think Tennessee's playing for a lot more this postseason. I mean, the way last postseason ended, the way last season's SEC tournament ended, they've got a chip on their shoulders, and they've said it all year. This is the time they've been waiting for. This is the time where stars become stars. I think Grant and Admiral need to step up. Jordan Bone, second team All-SEC, is probably the second best point guard in this league. To Tremont Waters. I just think that they are playing for something else. Admiral's going to be gone after this year. You know how prideful of a guy he is, and I think he's going to be one to not want to try to let this opportunity slip through his fingers. They didn't repeat as SEC regular season champions like they wanted, so I think they will be playing for a little bit more. I expect to see Tennessee and LSU in the championship game this year.
I think the Tennessee-Mississippi State game might be getting overlooked a little bit. I mean, Mississippi State didn't play well here at Thompson-Boling Arena and was hanging around in that game for a lot of time, and they have a team that I think matches up pretty well against Tennessee as far as their guard-heavy. So I think they could give Tennessee a run for their money. I do think Tennessee will win that game. My prediction, I'm going to go with Auburn-Kentucky in the final, with Kentucky winning. I like Auburn because I like teams that can shoot the ball really well in March, and I also like teams that have veteran guards, and Auburn has both of those. Plus Bruce Pearl, he's taken teams on runs in the tournament before, so I'm also a little hesitant on LSU with their whole situation. So I think Auburn's playing well right now too. They didn't play well for the early stages of the SEC. But I think they're getting it together right now, so I think that they'll stay hot. I like to see them make a run, and then I think Kentucky will beat Tennessee. I think that'll be a close game finally, but I'm going to give the edge to Kentucky. I think they're going to have, even though it's in Nashville, Tennessee, I think there's going to be more Kentucky fans at that game.
Always are.
They were at St. Louis, so.
This year, I mean, this year I would expect there to be more Tennessee fans than there normally are in Nashville for the SEC tournament, but I still think Kentucky, I mean, their fans travel so well. They didn't this year to Knoxville, but when it's tournament time, their fans really travel well. So I think I'm going to give a slight edge to Kentucky in that game and then have them beating Auburn in the championship. So that's definitely going to be wrong because I'm always wrong.
Auburn's a hot take. I thought about it for a second, to be honest.
It'll be Florida, Mississippi State.
Oh, my Lord.
Florida has Kayvon Allen, so that's senior guard. I mentioned senior guard. I'll just find senior guards.
Yeah,
on
but you
every
said
team,
shooting
though.
too. So.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
Florida doesn't shoot the ball very
non-existent
well.
most of the time. For
They
them.
die by the 3 most of the time.
All right, well, Corey and I will be in Nashville for the whole SEC tournament, depending on how long we're there. I mean, seeing how long Tennessee makes it. You guys will cover that selection show possibly if they let you guys. And then we'll find out where the Lady Vols are going. So we'll be back next week with a whole lot of new stuff to talk about. We'll figure out where Tennessee is going in the NCAA tournament, figure out where the Lady Vols are going, what the Vols do in the SEC tournament. We'll be back with all of that next week on Checkerboard Chat. Thanks for watching.